Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
And I'm Brittany Pacheco, and we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss the relatively new book, MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios. If you are a watcher or a listener of our podcast, you know the last couple months I've been mentioning this book nonstop. So we had to do a special episode about some of the facets of this book. I don't want to give away the whole thing. I think that anyone who's interested in the MCU at all, or superhero movies, or just movies in general, if you're interested in how the movie business works, this is a must read. So, like I said, not going to spoil all of it, but we're going to talk about some casting stuff that was revealed in the book that I wasn't aware of. Some of it I was, but most of it I wasn't. So, we'll get to that. But first, Brittany, there was a breaking news story from the world of the MCU today, and this has
Yeah.
been something that we've been kind of waiting for to hear what was going to happen with Jonathan Majors and his situation. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I had no idea that even this was going to be dropped with the jury already beginning deliberations to discuss what was going to happen with Jonathan Majors and being accused of uh, assault and domestic harassment against his former girlfriend. And the news dropped this afternoon while we were having lunch with, some other fellow watchers, and it was a little shocking. I say shocking just because of the footage that had most recently been released to the media,
Mhm.
showing the events of that night, along with when the police were called to Jonathan Major's home in New York and everything that transpired there. It didn't seem like it was in the former girlfriend's favor of what she alleged happened versus what we were seeing with the CCTV footage. It was just it didn't match up. However, the jury did find Jonathan Majors guilty for 2 counts, but also acquitted him of the 2 other counts. So it's a little bit of a
Yeah.
mixed answer, which I don't fully understand,
To
but
me, after
yeah.
what we saw last week when that footage was released, to me, that's what we were talking about earlier today. I was like, it is kind of a, this is before the verdict was announced. I was like, it's kind of mixed. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't look great for either party, whether it's
Yeah.
Jonathan Major or his ex-girlfriend. And
Mhm.
that woman's name is Grace Jabari,
Mhm.
who is also an actor. So I guess I wasn't surprised at how the verdicts came down, but it was like, this is something we've been talking about for, almost a year, it seems like, or, most of this year.
It
And
happened
just,
earlier this year in February and
yeah,
March, I believe,
right.
so yeah, it's taken
And
up a good majority of the year.
it's kind of been hanging over the head of the MCU, given, Jonathan Majors was cast to play He Who Remains slash Kang, and Kang was the villain of the multiverse saga. And
Yeah.
now, Marvel's dropped him. As you can see our ticker, I'm reading here from Variety. It says Marvel Studios has parted ways with Jonathan Majors, the actor cast to play Kang, the central antagonist in the multiverse saga of the MCU,
Mhm.
after he was convicted December 18th today on 2 misdemeanor court counts of harassment and assault of Grace Jabari, his ex-girlfriend. It says a source close to the studio confirmed the decision to Variety. So, like you said before, he was found not guilty of 1 count of intentional assault in the 3rd degree and 1 count of aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree. So, obviously, it's a messy situation from all points
All
of view,
parties.
honest,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but from the perspective of entertainment wise, which is what we do here, talk about the MCU and superheroes and movies, um, he's out. Jonathan Majors, very talented actor, an actor who was on the rise, who it was kind of a meteoric rise
It
from,
was.
the first time I ever saw him was on Lovecraft Country, which was an
Mhm.
HBO show, which I did not watch, but I mean, I watch HBO shows, so I knew the show was on there. And, it seemed like overnight he was cast as Kang, and then he's, in Creed 3 as the villain, and then, he was gonna play Dennis Rodman in a biopic about Dennis Rodman, which who knows if that's even gonna happen anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Lots of stuff. He has other movies that are kinda in limbo given his situation, and, he was dropped by his agent, he was dropped by, other movie studios, and the last holdout was Marvel, and it's,
Mhm.
we were wondering, would Marvel Studios, what would they do? And right after the news came out today, about an hour later, they dropped him. So,
Yep.
what are your thoughts on that?
It's one of those things where I definitely could tell that was the direction that Marvel or Disney Marvel were headed towards just because of other little things that were happening ahead of time. They let go of the writer from Quantumania,
Mhm.
heavily involved the character Kang and kinda developing that story, and that writer, believe, was slated to write for Kang Dynasty, which would be the next, big Avengers movie.
Jeff
They
Jeff Loveness is the name of the writer, yeah.
Right, and Disney did hire a new writer for
Mhm.
the new Kang Dynasty movie. However, at the time, it was still, named Avengers Kang Dynasty, but since the drop of Jonathan Majors from the studio because of the guilty verdict, right now it's more or less being slated as Avengers 5. So
Right.
if they come up with a new title, if they come up with a new villain, I'm sure that's all gonna be incorporated into that movie.
Mhm.
But we've talked about it here a lot. I'm not 100% surprised that this was the move with not only the trial, not only with Disney, but the fact that I was actually a little bit more appreciative that Disney was at least waiting for the verdict
Mhm.
before they made any final decisions. However, they already were kind of moving in the direction of, "We're gonna drop Jonathan Majors and pivot to another actor, pivot to another villain within the MCU so that we can keep this multiverse going." And by the sounds of it, a lot of rumors have surrounded the villain from I was about to say Doctor Who, just kidding, from Fantastic Four, which would be Doctor Doom.
Mhm.
So we'll see if that actually transpires or not. So I will say once again, I've said it before. I very much enjoyed watching Jonathan Majors play Kang. This villain, I think, was so interesting to me. I think his performance was so captivating. Like, you believed every single word that he said as Kang or He Who Remains, and you just felt it in your bones, like, "Oh, this man means business." And maybe that kind of really played out in real life. Listen, we weren't there. We've
Mhm.
seen the footage, of course, that was released from, CCTV cameras. We're not in these people's lives. We're only being given bits and pieces of their lives, and those involved obviously know the truth or interpret the truth the way that they see fit. It's really unfortunate just because I feel that he is such a talent and would have a lot to offer to Marvel. However, you do the bad thing, you're tried by a jury of your peers, you are, given a verdict, and you have to deal with those consequences,
Mhm.
actions, choices, they all have consequences, whether good or bad. And hopefully with this is something that he'll learn from, grow from. Don't know what's going to happen with his career. Just as you said, it was very meteoric with uh, just his takeoff. The reputation is tarnished, that's for sure, especially with Disney and Marvel being what it is, because we're going to learn a lot about the reign of the MCU today.
Mhm.
But this is really interesting timing of us wanting to delve into this book that you read to talk about the casting what ifs, and then like the biggest casting or one of the biggest castings
Yeah.
that Marvel ever made is no longer associated with the studio, so it's just really
Yeah.
damn damnedest of timing.
I mean, it's not the biggest decision in the MC. I think that was probably casting Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and we'll get to that in a
Mhm.
little bit, but
Yeah,
it is kind of a pivotal point for the MCU. Obviously, the movies are not as popular as they were in previous years.
yeah,
Obviously, the Marvels did not do very well. Quantumania, which was the movie that, Jonathan Majors Kang was in, also did not do very well, compared to Marvel standards.
yeah.
So, it's really we're at an interesting point in the MCU where and, you mentioned before, the movie kind of reportedly, internally, people are referring to it as Avengers 5
Mhm.
instead of the King Dynasty.
Right.
However, it's still officially listed as the King Dynasty on Marvel's website. It
It
has a release
is.
date of
Yeah.
May 1st, 2026. I don't think that either is gonna be true. The title is gonna change. I do think that obviously the release date will change. It's or the question is, but I mean, maybe, here's the thing. Would you recast the character? There are definitely actors out there who could play this character and the character, just the character itself of Kang. if you're going to recast a character, Kang is kind of the perfect one because he has all these variants. So you could really just select any one and just say, "Oh, this is a variant of
Exactly.
Kang," and just kind of be on your way. I mean, really, with movies, you can kind of do that with anything, right? Like
Sure.
you can recast. It's all make believe stuff, so you can,
Yeah.
recasting happens quite often. But
Yeah.
so what do you
eh,
think? Would you recast?
I think this would actually be probably the one and only time opportunity presents itself to recast, just
Mm,
because we already know that we're in the multiverse. We already know that there's variants. We already know that He Who Remains or Kang has multiple variants. And while we were kind of introduced to that at the end of Quantumania, all the variants looked like Kang. Okay. But we also know that that doesn't necessarily have to be. So if you want to pivot and cast a completely different actor to be Kang, again, this is the one and only
mhm.
opportunity to do so. And I think if I'm not mistaken, this would actually be the first recasting in the MCU. If I'm forgetting something,
No,
forgive me,
no.
y'all.
Think about Don Cheadle became
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Rhodey.
Rhodey. You're
Yeah.
right. Okay, see, there we go.
That was, that was a big one. That was a very early
That
on.
was a pretty
Yeah.
big one because when you have
Right.
a oh man, what's his name? Howard.
Howard
The first
Stark?
Rhodey. No, 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 no. The actor that played the first Rhodey. Um,
Oh,
anyway, it doesn't matter. He
no,
was
yeah,
already
yeah, yeah. Terrence
he
Howard.
was
Yeah.
Terrence Howard, thank you. Yeah, he was already a big name, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a big deal. But then he gets replaced by Don Cheadle, who I think is just a wonderful replacement, of course. So it'd be really interesting to see who could potentially be recast
Yeah.
as Kang. It's funny
There's
how we're on this theme of recasting, Justin. Real quick before I offer who I think could be the next Kang, I want to get here into the chat. We've got Yesenia here. Thank you so much for joining us. In regards to Jonathan Majors, she says he's a good actor. I hope he gets his personal life together. I agree. And Desmond, girl, thank you so much for being here. We love you. She says, "Hey guys, well said regarding Jonathan Majors." So yeah, there's a lot going on in the world of the MCU, Kang, Jonathan Majors. But here's what I have to offer with regards to who could be cast as uh, the next Kang.
Yep.
Don't come at me, y'all. Don't come at me. Listen, if you're watching here on YouTube, what I'm showing you all is from Twitter. It's Jonathan Majors gets fired.
Yeah.
Hear me out. And pictured here in the Kang outfit in his throne is none other than RDJ from Tropic Thunder. It's
Yeah.
gonna be very controversial.
Yes,
I
and
know, y'all.
yeah. That's not gonna happen. It's funny,
It's
but
not
that's
gonna
not gonna
happen.
happen.
It's not.
There
It's just funny to
Yeah.
me. I had it. I shared it with you maybe 10 minutes before we jumped on this pod, and it's like it's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
Listen, this is one way to bring back RDJ, okay? Because
Yeah.
I still feel you bring him back at any capacity as Iron Man, it destroys the moment, the ultimate sacrifice of Endgame. But you bring him back as Kang,
Yeah.
just saying.
I think anything is possible. I think
I think so
the
too.
story's good, you can make anything work. I don't think this is gonna work. This is obviously a joke, but there's some speculation online. There are people throwing out names like John David Washington, maybe as Kang, or John
Okay.
Boyega from the Star Wars movies.
John
Um,
Boyega. Okay, I can get behind it. Desmond says I can dig it with,
yeah.
with RDJ as Kang.
But, honestly, I think they're gonna go the other direction. They're gonna pivot. I think that
Yeah,
the Kang name conjures up Jonathan Majors, right?
yeah,
People are gonna think Jonathan Majors whenever they hear Kang, even if it's recast.
for sure.
And quite honestly, Jonathan Majors played the character. He was in the Loki season finale, is where
Mhm.
Loki season 1 finale, where he played He Who Remains for the first time. Then he
Yes,
appeared in Quantumania. Then he appeared in, of course, in season 2 of Loki as Victor Timely, and also He Who Remains. And, we love Loki on this podcast, and I
yes, we
think
do.
Loki season 2 is the best season of MCU television thus far. But, people weren't as big on Quantumania, and it was almost like the way they ended season 2 of a Loki, Kang was kind of pushed aside. So it was almost kind of a perfect way to pivot and go to another villain, be it Doctor Doom or whomever they decide to go to. So, and also because Quantumania didn't work as well as they hoped it would. So I think that that's very possible. I think that, like I said, I think the movie will not be called The King Dynasty. It'll be Secret
Yeah.
Wars Part 1 or some other Avengers, related title to go
Yeah.
with the other Secret Wars movie or to go with the Secret Wars movie that we know is coming out later on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just, like I said, it's a very interesting time for the MCU, and I think now we know that they're gonna make it. The decision's been made, so now it's just like,
Yes.
what's the movie gonna be called, and then we can
Yeah.
get going because
Yeah.
Avengers movies. So far, four of them have been four of the biggest movies of all time, and
For sure.
I think they would definitely love to get that Avengers title back in the theaters, so that because I think people will go see those movies.
Well, and I
Yeah,
think now, given the events that has happened with Jonathan Majors, I think people might actually be curious as to how Marvel is gonna pivot and
yeah,
how they're going to handle this villain, or if they're gonna change villains altogether, they're gonna do a recast of the villain. You see what I'm saying? So I
yeah.
think, while there's been superhero fatigue for quite some time, I think this might actually kind of create some sort of energy where people are just like, okay, now I need to know what they're gonna do. I need to know what's gonna happen. So I don't know. It's a business, y'all. It's about the money. It's very unfortunate it's happened with Jonathan Majors, given how his career was beginning to take off and whatnot. And I agree with Yesenia here in the chat, said that nobody wants to touch that, meaning Kang or being cast as Kang, with a 10-foot pole. Too controversial for press junket questions. And I agree with
Yeah.
that. And with regard to John Boyega, absolutely loved him in Star Wars. Unfortunately, said he would never want to work with Disney again after Star Wars backlash and scandal. I get it. I completely understand it. We're not fans of the sequels here on the Watchers in the Basement. At least Force Awakens was okay.
Yeah.
It was fine. It had potential, but the last two movies were
Yeah.
utter trash. And I
I don't hate The Last Jedi. I don't hate The Last Jedi. I think it's fine. I just think that
when
for mo
Luke Skywalker says
yeah.
it wasn't good,
Well,
yeah.
you mean Mark Hamill, the actor.
No,
Yeah.
I know what I said. I know what I said.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, to me, the problem with that series was you had 3 movies and they didn't go together. You had a trilogy that wasn't in sync, and that's a mistake. Like, that's an
And
organizational mistake.
you also ended with the protagonist,
Oh, yeah. No.
claiming to be a Skywalker. It's like, shut up.
The
Just
Rise of
stop.
Skywalker, really bad movie. One
Trash.
one of the worst
Trash.
movies I think I've ever seen. I'll never
Trash.
watch that movie.
We're not gonna get on that tangent right
No,
now.
we're moving on. Moving on. So from, but we're sticking with the business because we're let's talk about how the MCU kind of came to be. And I have discovered this recently. I've been reading this book, and I'm glad Yesenia joined us, is in the chat. And of course, Desmond, it's great to have her. Desmond was a part of our draft episode we did a few weeks back, the 2023 MCU movie draft. So please be sure to go vote for Desmond or Brittany or myself or George or Frank or Amber. Who we have Brittany's posted that in the chat now. If you're watching us on YouTube, we'll also have the link in the description for YouTube watchers and for listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But yeah, please go check out the poll. Vote for who you think won the draft, and we really appreciate it. We're going to announce the winner early January when we come back. We'll be talking about who won the poll. And just a reminder, Desmond won our draft last year, which was a character draft. So maybe she goes back to back. I don't know. We'll
We're
see.
coming for you, Desmond A. We're coming
Right.
for you.
Right. So it's great to have Desmond in the chat. But especially, I'm really happy to have Yesenia in the chat because
Yep.
Yesenia pointed this out a few weeks ago. I've been talking about the book MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, literally since I started reading it, the book came out October 10th, and I downloaded it to my Kindle the first second I possibly could. And I've been talking about this book almost nonstop to everyone who will listen. So I decided to put together a pod, for this about the book. Now I don't want to spoil the entire book because there's so many interesting angles and nuggets about the MCU that I really think that everyone should read this book. It's a fun read. I flew right through it. I mean, it's obviously something I'm very interested in, so there's that. But I think that, like I said, if you enjoy these movies, you enjoy superhero movies or just the movie business in general, you should check it out. There's a lot to glean from checking out this book. But what I want to talk about today is all the casting what ifs that happened throughout, Marvel's history. And, if you think about it, like Marvel is so good at casting. They're so great at casting. And, the kind of their secret weapon is a lady named the casting director, Sarah Haley Finn. And I know you've probably seen her name because on every Marvel movie, she's listed as a casting director. And she's kind of the unsung hero of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because without her, we probably wouldn't have Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, which that's, obviously the biggest decision in the franchise history that kick-started the franchise. Without that movie and without that actor, I don't think this, we're not talking about the MCU today, unless we're looking back at a failed franchise experiment. So that was a huge project. So let's get into some of the casting information that I kind of discovered in this book. Um, Brittany, I've talked with this item with you a few times before, but it's still just shocking to say out loud. So this book, not only does it talk about casting decisions in the MCU, but it talks about casting decisions in just Marvel films in general. And, the first big Marvel film in general was X-Men. Came out in, I believe
I love
2000 or
this
1990.
topic.
Yeah. In 1999, directed by Bryan Singer. And, they were casting this movie. And one of the most famous people in the world who ever lived, the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson, lobbied to play Professor X.
Wild.
That is when I read that, I had to read that sentence over and over because I was just like, I could not picture Michael Jackson playing Professor X.
Nope.
Brittany, what are your thoughts on the King of Pop as Professor X?
It's wild. It's truly wild. Like when you were talking about it with us, what was it, about a month ago or so? I literally could not believe it. And not that I don't believe you as a person. I didn't believe the whole idea that arguably the biggest celebrity that may have ever existed
Mhm.
wanted to be Professor Charles Xavier so badly that, he basically agreed to wear like a bald cap and, the makeup, whatever needed to be done. He wanted to be Professor X. And that to me is just crazy. And it wasn't until you pulled up, I think, the article from, was it Rolling Stone or Variety, one
Yeah.
of these two big publishers, where it was like an article from 5 years ago that talked about this. And I'm like, that is absolutely wild to me. And of course, we can't really talk about this whole thing without making some jokes. And so it's kind of like the whole, Billie Jean Grey, are you okay? Are you okay? They're so stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh,
it,
yeah. Yeah.
it's so funny. Yesenia here says sign of the times. Yeah, it's just unbelievable to me. And I think it goes to show that every single person in the world has like their little uh, nerd fathom, not fathom, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like
Mhm.
everyone has like something that they're really super into, and that I guess was very much MJ. And Desmond A is asking, didn't MJ want to play Peter Pan too? Given
Yeah.
that his place was called Neverland,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think he thought he was Peter Pan. I think that's
I
also
think he
part
did.
of it.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he did too.
Right.
Bless him. But yeah, that for you to start off with that bit of information,
Mhm.
with just starting off the book in general, I'm like, "Oh god, what more will there be when it comes down to, like, the big
There's
castings
more.
of Iron Man, Hulk, for God's sakes, Captain America?" Because, we've talked about this a lot before here on the pod, that a lot of these major MCU characters that we know and love weren't really beloved in their comic days.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing about the MCU is they built this mega franchise on the backs of B to C level characters because, Spider-Man, who is the most popular character in all of comics, bigger than Batman, bigger than Superman, bigger than Wonder Woman.
Not mine.
Spider-Man, they didn't own the rights to Spider-Man, Sony did. And their second biggest character, the Hulk, they didn't own the rights to the Hulk. And, their biggest team up or their biggest team, X-Men, of course, Wolverine's a major character also. Fox, 20th Century Fox had the movie rights to that. So how the MCU was built, again, this is all detailed in the book. but they built it on Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, and you know these characters that were B level or C level characters. So it is amazing that how they they didn't even have their top characters. But that'd be like if DC built itself on Green Arrow or the Flash, or even
Ooh,
the Flash is kind of a big name, or
yeah,
Green Lantern or Martian Manhunter. That'd be like that's kind of what the MCU did with their characters. So
crazy.
I would be remiss if before we go any further, I want to mention the authors of the book are Joanna Robinson, Dave Gonzalez, and Gavin Edwards. Joanna Robinson, she is a writer and a podcaster for The Ringer, so definitely check her out. She has a great podcast on the House of R with Mallory Rubin. I know Brittany's a fan of Mallory
Oh,
Rubin from
Mallory.
her
Binge
binge
mode.
mode days, so definitely check that podcast out.
Love.
Also, Dave Gonzalez also does a podcast on The Ringer with Joanna Robinson. It's called Trial by Content. Easy for me to say. Trial by Content. It's actually a very entertaining
Very
listen.
clever.
You have they pick different topics every week, and they three different hosts compete to see who wins, and they have a poll, and so it's a very creative podcast. And then Gavin
Thankfully, no one
Edwards,
dies.
thankfully they don't, yeah. But Gavin Edwards is a pretty noted author. He's written several books, including one about Samuel L. Jackson, where he uses Samuel L. Jackson's favorite word in the title. It's mother, and I think you know the rest of that.
Fluffer?
So fluffer, yeah, mother fluffer. Now,
Mhm.
anyway, they did an incredible job with this book. A lot of research. This is like a 500-page book. I got it on my Kindle. I love reading books on my Kindle because it tells me like, the percentage I've read so far. Oh, you're 17% of the book, and based on your reading speed, you'll be done reading in 5 hours and 26 minutes. I just love like the numbers while I'm reading. So anyway, but obviously you can pick this book up in all, wherever books are sold. So I will stop plugging the book and I'll get back to the pod. But I really, really enjoyed the book. I even listened to the audiobook, which was like 16 hours, and I like flew through it like in a weekend. So, or 3 or 4 days. So anyway, very
Cool.
much enjoyed it. So back to the casting what ifs. Another one before the MCU was Wesley Snipes. So as you probably know, he starred in the Blade trilogy.
Yep.
Um, and but however, while he was starring in Blade, he was attached to produce and star in Black Panther. And
Really?
so back then, they didn't operate in a connected universe. So
Mm.
Wesley Snipes was operating under the thoughts that not only was he going to play Blade, he was also going to play Black Panther because those characters were never going to cross over. So he was like, it's cool if I played both these characters because they're never going to meet up. So I thought that was interesting because nowadays I don't think you would see that happen because obviously
Definitely not.
interconnected franchises are it's kind of the way to go, or let's see what's profitable business wise. So
Funny enough, we are gonna have a little bit of that conundrum when it comes down to Mahershala Ali because
yeah,
he is slated to play Blade in the
right,
upcoming Blade movie, but he also had a role in it wasn't then MCU, but it was still Marvel Studios
yeah.
when it was Luke Cage.
That
He
was
he
Marvel Television,
okay, Marvel
which there
Television.
is a difference. And that is pointed out
My
in the
bad.
book too. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Mahershala Ali has already been introduced into the Marvel family, if you will. He played more or less a villainous character in Luke Cage,
right.
but then now he's cast as Blade, and I remember because I actually never finished Luke Cage, I don't know, it wasn't really keeping my attention. No disrespect to anyone, it's just I don't know. I enjoy Daredevil, but, with Luke Cage, and seeing him and then knowing the information that he's eventually going to be Blade, I remember talking to Frank. I'm like, "Well, how is this gonna work out when, he's already got an established character in this show? Like, you're gonna recast him or you're gonna cast him in a different role." And Frank, I think he alluded to something like, "It'll make sense. Like, it's going to make sense." I'm like, "Well, now I'm curious to as to finish the show, but I just haven't
Well,
yet." So, yeah.
the only thing I can say is Luke Cage isn't canon to the MCU yet. It might
That
be,
would be yeah, that would
but
be
I mean,
the way to
even
go.
like the Punisher, like John Bernthal is gonna appear in the MCU. It sounds like, but as of right now, the Punisher is not. The Punisher from the Netflix series is not canon to the MCU just yet. So that's what I can say. And if they don't decide to use Luke Cage, maybe they can avoid the whole Mahershala Ali playing two different characters. So,
Yeah, I think for sure. But, to me, it was just really interesting that you have an actor who's being
yeah,
cast in 2 different roles within Marvel, so,
yeah.
yeah.
So now getting to the MCU, uh, Brittany, I have a trivia question for you. Who is the
Okay.
first actor who was cast to join the MCU?
MCU. Ooh, um, actual MCU.
Yeah, the
Oh
first
god.
actor that signed on the dotted line to play an MCU character.
Oh, that's tough,
It's
and
a
I'm usually
surprising answer.
I'm
But it's
usually really
someone
good with trivia.
we've already mentioned this person in the
Well, that
podcast.
narrowed it down.
Well, it's a person we mentioned early on, and I think let me
Hmm.
give you the answer. The answer is Terrence Howard. He was the
Oh.
first actor
Oh,
cast.
well, that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, he was the first roadie.
Yeah, he
So
was, like, the top billed actor
yeah,
for Iron
he
Man, so,
he made more money than Robert Downey Jr. did.
yes.
So
Robert
now,
Downey was a liability, I'm
right?
sure,
Yeah,
because of reasons.
yeah. That's all detailed in the book as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, let's move around. Let's talk about how the Avengers were assembled. So Iron Man, of
Nice.
course, was it ended up being Robert Downey Jr., which one of the greatest decisions in the history of movies was casting him. Christopher Nolan recently said the same thing. Of course,
Oh, wow.
RDJ is in Oppenheimer, plays a
Mhm.
pivotal role in the movie, and on the press tour, he mentioned that uh, Robert Downey Jr. going to being Iron Man was just one of the biggest moves in the history of cinema, and it's hard to disagree with that.
It's very
How,
high praise
yeah.
given Christopher Nolan. Yeah.
However, he was not the only actor considered for the role, and then let's get to that. Now, first off, before the MCU, Tom Cruise was rumored to play Tony Stark when the rights to the movie were owned by 20th Century Fox. However, when the movie was, reverted back, when the movie rights reverted back to Marvel Studios, here's the list of actors who were considered for the role. And one of them is, a Britney favorite, Johnny Depp was considered. What do
Yes.
you think about Johnny Depp as Tony Stark slash Iron Man?
You know what? As much as I would love to see
Yeah,
Johnny Depp in anything, I don't think it would have been a good fit.
no.
And it's no disrespect to Johnny. He's a very versatile actor,
Mhm.
but I've seen him in both very serious and then like the goofy, sort of roles, right?
Yeah.
I feel Johnny is better slated for those kind of wacky type of roles. I think it's very fitting of his personality. When he's serious, he will be serious. When he's gets that opportunity to be goofy, I mean, he excels. I feel like with Tony Stark, yes, he's, billionaire, philanthropist, playboy,
Mhm.
uh, humanitarian, whatever you wanna call it. But I don't see it. I don't see
Yeah.
Johnny as Tony Stark or Iron Man.
Mhm.
The delivery in a lot of,
Yeah.
RDJ's lines, I think is very fitting just for RDJ. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But that's really interesting. I had no idea that JD
Yeah.
was considered.
And the reasoning behind this, the reason why he didn't get the role more so than, even the book didn't really specify whether he was interested. It was more so that I don't think Marvel Studios at the time had enough money to cast someone like Johnny Depp, who he was red hot at the time. He was doing the Pirates of the Caribbean movies,
Yeah,
which were massive hits. And
yeah.
so that was kind of a dream casting for them, which obviously didn't materialize, which thankfully didn't because RDJ was the best choice. But
Mhm.
there were other choices. So Jim Caviezel, who, would play,
Oh,
the Passion of the Christ, he, also he had before being considered for Iron Man, he declined the role of Cyclops in X-Men. So, that's interesting. I didn't know either one of
interesting.
those nuggets.
No.
I
Th
think
I re
they yeah,
the
I don't
first
think
time I
he was
saw the first time I saw Jim Caviezel was actually in The Count of Monte Cristo. He played, Edmond Dantes, and I think he was wonderful in that role as someone who was wronged and then he sought his revenge and got it.
Mhm.
I which is funny because he played opposite to, Guy Ritchie. I never remember Guy Pearce, who would play a villain in Iron Man 3.
Yeah, Guy Pearce.
So, yeah, so I thought that was kinda interesting in itself. Desmond Ace in the chat says, "I just pictured Captain Jack Sparrow as Tony Stark, and it made me giggle." Girl, listen, it's a weird sort of
Oh, or Johnny Depp and
picture.
those cologne commercials that he has nowadays where he's playing guitar. Have y'all seen those
Oh,
commercials?
yes. God, yes, I love him in those. Oh my god, yes. Now you get him to be Dante in Fast X or Fast
Yeah,
10.
right,
Yes.
right.
Absolutely. But no,
Yeah,
like I said, Johnny played some serious roles. I absolutely love him in the movie Finding Neverland, which
right.
is about the playwright who wrote Peter Pan. Funny how Neverland is a topic of on this pod today, but that's a little bit more serious role. But he also had like his kind of fun, lovable moments. But I don't think it's the same energy as
No,
Tony Stark would demand. So, but Jim Caviezel, okay,
yeah,
interesting.
interesting pick.
Also another no.
Yeah.
I can't see it.
So here's another interesting pick, Sam Rockwell, who would later be cast as Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2.
No.
He was considered for
No.
you know what? Honestly, like, the thing is at the
No.
time, he wasn't a big enough name,
No.
but I think he
Yeah.
kinda has more of the same energy that RDJ has.
He's kinda got that swag, I can see
Yeah,
that.
he's yeah,
He's
I mean,
got that swag.
I think obviously they made the right choice, but I think
Sure,
Sam
yeah.
Rockwell wouldn't have been a terrible choice.
No.
Now, the actor who, however, was the runner up or the close, closest to RDJ, if there's anybody close to him, was Timothy Olyphant, who at the time
Mm,
was on, oh god, what's the show he was on? I mean, later he was on Justified, but he was on
yeah.
Deadwood, the HBO
Okay.
series, and there's a really funny clip on YouTube. You should definitely check this out if you're
Hmm.
interested. Um, he Timothy Olyphant was on Conan O'Brien in like 2015 or 2016. And Conan O'Brien brings up in the interview, he's like, "Oh, like, so you auditioned to play Iron Man." And Timothy Olyphant says, he's like, "Yeah, I screen tested the same day as this wonderful actor, Robert Downey Jr." He's like, "And I'm still waiting to hear back." He's like, "Fingers crossed." And then, he's like, "This could be a big moment for me. The superhero movies are huge." And then Conan's like, he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Robert Downey Jr. is all wrong." He's like, "You've
It's
got this."
so
Yeah. So
yeah.
very
Okay,
funny
but
clip. Um,
based on that, and then based on seeing him in The Office, of course, I was a late bloomer when it came down to The Office. He had a very small role in The Office, but
right.
he kinda exhibits that same Tony Stark, like, "I'm just better than everyone,
Yeah.
and I'm smarter than and I know it." I can see that. The only downside with Timothy, and I don't know the ages of these actors, if they're all close in age or not, he appears, at least to me, he appears to be older looking
He's
than
actually,
RDJ.
I think they're about the same age.
They're about the same age, okay.
Yeah, and
Now,
he might be slightly younger, honestly.
I just because in the things that I've seen him in, even from around that listen to me, from that time, he to me, you put him next to RDJ, and it just looks like RDJ is much younger looking than him. So, in terms of age, and then how many movies there were, it's like could Timothy be able to do all the things that?
Mhm.
Not saying that RDJ couldn't, or
Yeah.
stunt doubles, that kind of thing. I don't know. Energy wise, personality wise, yes, I can see that. I can get
S
behind that.
so I just
But
looked it up.
RDJ, go
Timothy
ahead.
Olyphant, 55 years old.
Okay.
Robert Downey Jr., 58 years old. So
Oh,
RDJ's older. Yeah.
he's older, but
Yeah.
well, now RDJ, he's had a lifestyle change. He doesn't he's not aging as well as he used to. But, with, Timothy Olyphant, I mean, he to me
Yeah.
appears to look older,
Yeah.
but I
I
I
can
could be
see that.
wrong. I could be wrong.
Yeah. He was also in The Mandalorian.
He
So,
was.
in the Book of
Yeah,
Boba
he
Fett, or
was, and I know
was he
your
in
mom's
Book
a fan.
She's a big fan of Justified. Yeah, she loves
Yeah,
Justified.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
So maybe mom would be
Your mom's got good taste, listen.
yeah, maybe she'd be a big fan of the MCU if he were Iron Man. So,
Listen,
but,
yeah, you
again, RDJ was the right choice. So,
RDJ was
moving
the
on.
only choice.
Yeah. Well, not the only choice, but he was the main choice, the best
I
choice.
said what I said. I
Yeah.
said what I said.
So moving on, let's go to Nick Fury. Now, Samuel L. Jackson was always the pick for the MCU, and mainly because in the comics, when they redid the characters in this Marvel Ultimate line of comics, the comic writer Mark Millar, he created the character, like he recreated Nick Fury in the image of Samuel L. Jackson. So, I mean, he was made to look like Samuel L. Jackson, so that it was almost like they had to cast Samuel L. Jackson, and Samuel L. Jackson is a comic book fan. he saw the version of Nick Fury back in the early 2000s, this new version of Nick Fury, and he was like, he contacted his agent. He's like, hey, or his lawyer, and he's like, do we need to sue somebody because like this is me? And so they contacted Marvel. Marvel's like, no, please don't sue us. We're big fans of you, and we like what you represent, and like you're obviously,
Motherfucker.
yeah, we enjoy, like, you have a look that we want to portray with one of our characters. And he said, okay, cool. He's like, but if you ever make a movie, I get to play Nick Fury. And turns out that was the deal that ended up bringing Samuel L. Jackson to the MCU, which I think is kind of crazy. However, there was, before the MCU, there was another Nick Fury, which I did not know at all. Before the MCU, David Hasselhoff played Nick Fury in a 1998 TV movie. This movie, by the way, is on YouTube. I looked it up. I watched a little bit of it. A TV movie called Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. It aired on Fox in 1998. You can look it up on YouTube. Do that after the podcast. We'd appreciate that. I think that's funny. Of course, Hasselhoff would later appear in the MCU in Guardians Volume 2. But Hasselhoff is interviewed in the book, and he is kind of salty, where he's like, I had people at Marvel tell me that I was always going to be Nick Fury, and then you make the movies and I'm not Nick Fury. So, however, there are people in the book quoted that said, hey, like, Hasselhoff did a good job. It was a different version of Nick Fury. It was more of a, like, tongue in cheek kind of jokey version of the character. But I was blown away by that one, because I'm like, David Hasselhoff, the guy from Baywatch, Knight Rider himself as Nick Fury. You kind of just have to see it to believe it. Brittany, what are your thoughts?
Don't hassle the Hoff, yo. Jeez, that based on my reaction, that's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
No, I can't see him ever being Nick Fury. I know something exists out there, but I'm trying to remember it. Did he have like a cameo where it looked like he had one eye patch in like one of the Austin Powers movies, or am I just
Yeah, I think he did. I think you're right. Yeah.
I'm like, is that where that came
That's
from?
crazy, because I didn't even think about it.
Oh my
the
God.
thing is, there is an actor who looks similar to him, and his
Okay.
name's Robert something. I can't think of his last name. He was very famous, like in the 70s.
Okay.
He is in Austin Powers with an eye patch. You're right, though. Hasselhoff might have been in Austin Powers. That's a very
No, but I think there was a or there was some
Yeah.
one of these spoofy movies where Hasselhoff is wearing the eye patch, and it might be on the left one as well, left or right. Can't remember right now which side he wears it, but that is crazy to me, to have Hasselhoff. Now, that's not to say that he couldn't be serious or menacing when he needed to be. There's certain roles that I feel that only certain people can play, and I think Nick Fury falls within that bracket, very much like RDJ.
Yeah.
It's written in the stars.
Yeah.
It's written in stone.
Yeah.
There it is.
So far, they're 2 for 2 on our scorecard.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
So,
I mean, Samuel L. Jackson finally got to kind of say motherfuck, that's a win. That's a win for all of us.
Well, I mean, it was kind of blocked out because he
I know.
It's
almost like
he was part of the snap, but
it's almost like, hey, this is Marvel talking to Samuel L. Jackson. Hey, by the way, we want you to be your character from Pulp Fiction, but just like tone it down a little. You know what I mean?
Yeah, give us the PG-13 version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving on, we're going to the Hulk. Now, Edward Norton played the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk movie that came out in 2008.
Yep.
However, director Louis Leterrier, who directed Fast X, which is one of our best movies of the year, right, Brittany?
I love Dante.
Yeah.
Just it's fantastic.
So Louis Leterrier, who also directed The Incredible Hulk, in the book, he mentions that his original choice to play the Hulk was, you want to guess, Brittany?
Oh, don't say Eric Bana, because he already was.
No, it wasn't Eric Bana.
Okay.
It was the actor who would later play the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo. So
really,
Louis Leterrier wanted to cast Ruffalo from the start. However, they went with the bigger star, Edward Norton. And Edward Norton, honestly, you should read the book just for the Edward Norton Hulk chapter, because Edward Norton was
he was invested.
Yeah, he was too invested, and he
Yeah.
clashed with Marvel
Yeah.
Studios, and that's why he didn't return.
It's very similar to that of Henry Cavill with The Witcher. Like, you're very invested in the
Yeah,
story and
similar. Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
what that's kind of reminding me of. Wow, Mark
yeah,
Ruffalo.
yeah.
Again,
Ruffalo
written in
was
the stars.
he was the original choice. So, and then after
That's cool.
when Ruffalo took over for Norton, he actually called Norton to get his blessing. So he was like, he wanted to make
Okay.
sure they were cool, and
Yeah.
Norton laughed it off and said, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "In the future, everyone's going to play the Hulk." So anyway, um,
Well, he's also related to Pocahontas, so he's gotta take everything with a grain of salt now,
oh,
so
okay. Well, I did not know that. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
good to know.
he's gotta chill.
So the next character is Black Widow.
Mhm.
Now, of course, Scarlett Johansson was cast at 24 years old. She was cast to
She was
play.
only 24 at the time?
Yeah, when she her first day of filming, she turned 24, and she on the set of Iron Man 2 was where we got um
I feel
Scarlett Johansson.
so unaccomplished in life.
Yeah, well, you can't compare yourself to like these uber talented like celebrity kind of people. You just gotta, keep yourself grounded, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing fine. Don't worry about it. You're doing great.
No.
So
No, we're not.
now Scarlett Johansson was the choice. However, the studio wanted Emily Blunt.
Mhm.
Emily Blunt actually wanted to play Black Widow. However, she was contractually obligated to star in Gulliver's Travels with Jack Black, which was filming at the same time as Iron Man 2, so she
Damn.
could not be a part of it. Um, what do you think about, Emily Blunt as, Black Widow?
Interesting choice. I don't know in levels of physicality, like, how much
Yeah,
she could do or pretend to do, you know what I mean? Because I feel like with ScarJo, she had previously been in some roles where it meant that she had to be physical, like she had to do some fighting scenes or some sort of martial arts or something or another. But I like Emily Blunt. I mean, the very first thing I think I ever saw her in was The Devil Wears Prada,
yeah,
and she was wonderful in that movie. So I think when she needs to be a badass, she can be a badass. But I feel like being Black Widow just kind of umps that level of badass. It would have been interesting.
yeah.
Let's check here in the chat that Yesenia said Emily would have been great. She loves her, and Desmond agrees. She says, "I like Emily Blunt." So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that casting. I would hope that she'd be able to live up to the physical
Yeah.
part of being Black Widow because she's an assassin. She's a spy. She will do whatever it takes, right? Um, which actually might kind of tee you off to maybe the next character that you want to discuss because
Almost, yeah, close.
almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next character we're talking about is Thor. However, Captain America and Thor were cast around the same time.
They were.
So, th Captain America and Thor, there are a lot of options for these characters, so let's dive into it. Of course, Chris Hemsworth, um, was cast as the God of Thunder. However, Marvel passed on him the first time,
Mhm.
and
That I
he
knew.
at that time, he was starring in a movie called Cabin in the Woods, which was directed
Yep.
by Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon,
Mhm.
and they heavily pushed for Chris to pursue the role, and he ended up getting it, persistence being the key. He, he kept auditioning, kept trying, and he finally got it, and of course, obviously, you can't imagine anybody else playing Thor besides Chris Hemsworth. However, there are a lot of other people who auditioned for that role, including his brother, Liam Hemsworth, who Liam initially got further in the process than Chris did in the beginning, which
And
is
I can't believe that. That's
I know, I
crazy to
can't
me.
believe it either, obviously, and Liam's younger, like, I just don't
Yeah.
see that as Thor.
Mm-mm.
Um, okay, so Liam Hemsworth obviously was in the running. There were also many other actors, including Charlie Hunnam. Are you familiar with Charlie Hunnam,
Oh, yeah.
Brittany?
I'm familiar with him. He was
Yeah,
in the show Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of
Um,
Anarchy.
he was also, kind of I think he was originally cast to be Christian Grey in 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay, yeah.
Crazy to me, but anyway.
Yeah, and he's made some news this week in our kind of circle of stuff because he is in a new Zack Snyder movie, Rebel Moon, which is
Mm.
like a Star Wars kind of adjacent movie. No, it's not Star Wars, but it's Zack Snyder's
Right.
version of Star Wars. Anyway,
Yeah.
Charlie Hunnam is a character in that movie, and for a long time, he was rumored to like he would have played the DCEU version of Green Arrow.
Hmm.
So, however, he was asked this week about that, and he shot that down. And he was like, "I was not interested at all in playing. I didn't know who that character was." So, kind of pouring some water on another superhero kind of
Yikes.
uh, casting. But so Charlie Hunnam was in the running for Thor. You also had
I could see
um,
it. I
you
could
had
see it.
Joel Kinnaman, who
Don't
we
know who
later
that is.
see in the Suicide Squad, or both Suicide Squad movies, and Alexander
Is is
Skarsgård.
is he like the Josh Duhamel kind of doppelganger?
He looks a little bit like Josh Duhamel. Yeah, a little
I
bit. Yeah,
Duhamel, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Okay, go
yeah.
ahead. What was the
And
next person you said? I'm sorry.
Alexander Skarsgård.
Oh, that's funny because his dad would be later cast in the MCU as well.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And then of
Huh.
course Tom Hiddleston, who
Yep.
Tom Hiddleston, you can find his audition on YouTube for Thor.
Mhm.
And they loved Tom Hiddleston so much. They didn't necessarily think he was Thor, but they're like, we've got it, we've got this guy. We've got to lock this guy into a deal. And so
Yeah.
of course he became Loki, the brother of Thor,
Yeah.
the villain of the first Avengers movie. So that was a,
Yeah.
they were casting one character, but then they got two major characters in the same run.
Boy, what a chance that was. Like, good
Yeah.
lord. Thank
Yeah.
goodness for the casting director and Kenneth Branagh for recognizing that Tom Hiddleston had something. Might not have been for Thor, but definitely the, mercurial villain that we know and love.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I should note that before the MCU, Sony was actually working on a Thor movie and they were going to cast Daniel Craig. So,
Oh
yeah.
no, not James Bond.
Yeah. And then of course we talked about this recently on one of our episodes of Loki that Daniel Craig was going to play Thor's other brother, Balder the Brave. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was going
Yeah.
to play Balder the Brave in Multiverse of Madness.
Well, I don't know
However,
if I don't know if he was a brother to Thor, but I think he was like an uncle or something. Either way, I think
related to Thor.
If Amber was here on the
Amber
pod,
would
she
know for
could give us
sure.
the lore
Yeah.
behind that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Some
Okay.
interesting stuff. Yeah. A lot of stuff.
Huh.
Director Kenneth Branagh, he had one mandate as far as the casting. He said, don't let it be like Fabio. So
That's a good
that's all he
that's a
cared
good
about. Just
rule.
find somebody who wasn't Fabio.
That's a
So
good rule.
anyway,
I can support that for sure.
moving
No,
on to Captain America, my favorite character in the MCU. This is a doozy. There are so many names.
so many.
I want to mention before the MCU, Jon Favreau, who of course would direct Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, who would also play Happy Hogan,
Yep.
Tony Stark's right-hand man. Before the MCU, Jon Favreau, who directed the movie Elf with Will Ferrell,
Yeah.
he wanted to direct an elf-type man out of time comedy about Captain America. Brittany, what are your thoughts on imagine Elf, but Captain America?
I don't like Elf. I don't like that movie.
I know, you
There's something
mentioned that.
there's
Yeah.
something about Will Ferrell
You
that
don't like Will Ferrell, yeah.
I don't care for him.
Right.
Absolutely did not care for him at all in The Office. The only movies that I think I have liked him in are Step Brothers and Talladega Nights. I think those are the only two. I could not get into Anchorman. Okay, maybe 3 movies. I watched the movie Bewitched, where he starred opposite of Nicole Kidman.
Mhm.
I think their chemistry was actually quite cute. But otherwise, I don't like Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
I don't like Elf. I think it's an incredibly annoying movie. Sorry, Yesenia. I must be broken because like everyone in the world loves Elf, and I'm just like, ew, go away.
It is one of the top Christmas
Yeah,
movies because
I get it.
one of the streaming services this week, and I can't remember which one. I honestly can't remember which one, but like I looked at the top 10. I think it was Max. Elf was the number one movie on Max. And I was like, wow, that movie's from 2003 or 4 or something. So
It should be Die Hard. Anyway, that being said, no and no.
yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, moving on to Captain America. Chris Evans, of course, was the pick. Great pick. However, Chris Evans declined to audition several times. He did not want to play this character because he had played a Marvel character before. He'd played
Yep.
Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies,
Yep.
the 20th Century Fox Fantastic Four movies, and he didn't want to get typecast as a superhero movie actor. And I mean, honestly, like his
How did
quotes,
that work out for you, my friend?
yeah. Of course, like you know, I mean, Chris Evans is a great pick for that character. Honestly, I think he should go back to playing that character because if you look at his career since then, it's been hit or miss, and it's mostly miss in my opinion.
I think he was great in Knives Out.
He was
Like,
great in Knives Out, yeah.
I
I
loved
liked
him
him
in
I
Knives
liked
Out.
him in The Gray Man as the villain. He was like the over the top villain,
Oh, was he? Still haven't
almost like
seen it.
Jason Momoa light, from Fast X.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
No,
a
I
great
thought he
actor, but
yeah, no, he's great. I loved him in Knives Out because he's playing basically like the villain in
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
movie, but I don't know. That
yeah,
was cool.
yeah. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's one of my favorite actors. I
Oh,
really
yeah,
liked him as
for sure.
Captain America. So Captain America was very tough. Let's
Mhm.
talk about the other choices for the character.
Yep.
Ryan Phillippe, he was got pretty far in the casting process.
Reese Witherspoon's ex-husband, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was gonna
Hmm.
play Captain America. He was in the running.
You know,
Um,
I think the only other movie I've really seen him in is the movie Crash from what, 2003,
okay.
2004? Yeah. So I don't know his career at all outside of that movie.
I've
And then
seen
the fact that he's Reese's ex-husband.
I think one of his biggest movies is Cruel Intentions back in late
Oh, yeah,
'90s,
yeah,
early
yeah, late
2000s. Like
90s.
that was
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yep.
but you when you see him, you don't necessarily he doesn't really
No,
scream Captain America. So,
no, at
anyway,
all.
moving on, Garrett Hedlund, do you know who that actor is?
I don't actually. If
He
I do, I don't know him by name.
okay. He, he's probably the least known of these actors on this list, but he's
Okay.
been in a few things, and, um,
Anything that I would know?
I don't know, honestly. He was in a Netflix movie a couple years ago that had Ben Affleck and, oh gosh, I'm blanking out who played Moon Knight? What's the actor's name? Who played Moon
Oh,
Knight?
I just Googled him. Okay,
Yeah,
so he was in Four Brothers. Okay, I've seen Four Brothers.
yeah,
He was in Tron Legacy.
okay,
Okay. Um, but other than that, no, I'm not too oh, okay, you know what? He was also in Troy. I think
okay,
he played, what's his name? Brad Pitt's cousin in the movie Troy.
okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, he was Patroclus. Okay, I know who he is. Okay,
okay,
okay.
yeah.
Not sure for Captain America. I could maybe Hawkeye, but
Yeah, yeah, no,
but
I see that, you're right, now I'm looking at
yeah,
picture of him, yeah,
I don't see it for Captain America. I can maybe see it for Hawkeye.
so the movie I was talking about with Garrett Hedlund, I just looked it up, was a movie called Triple Frontier, it's on Netflix. It
Mm,
stars Oscar Isaac, Ben Affleck, Charlie Hunnam, Pedro Pascal, and Garrett Hedlund.
mhm.
It's a
Internet daddy.
pretty yeah, it's a pretty internet entertaining movie,
Internet, sorry.
internet, yeah, you tripped me up there, but, yeah, so Garrett Hedlund was among the casting
Okay.
choices. Brittany, just, hold your horses, but the next one is Jensen Ackles.
Oh my
Exactly.
god. Oh
Exactly.
my god.
That's why I wish we had Amber on this episode also to talk about this. So Jensen Ackles, of course, one of your new favorite, actors,
Oh,
of course, from Supernatural, but also he later would play in The Boys, he would play, Soldier Boy, which is a Captain America knockoff. So how funny is that?
where's my pop when I need it?
I mean, how
You just
funny is that? That
Oh,
he
wow.
yeah, so he ends up playing a Captain America knockoff years later, but he was considered for Captain America. How cool is that?
That's cool, but it's again, it's one of those roles that I don't think would have been
Yeah.
very fitting. I
Well, it
see him more as
Supernatural
the
early too.
well, yeah, supernatural.
Would have gone
But
away, yeah, because he would have been invested in Marvel, yeah,
yeah, he would've. But you know what? That's okay. Give me all the Dean Winchester in the world.
yeah,
Give me all the Soldier Boy in the world. And you know what? Being the kind of anti Captain America, even though he pretty much thinks he's red, white, and blue.
yeah,
But you know, not gonna spoil the character at all for those of you who may be interested in seeing Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy in The Boys.
yeah,
But I think that's a lot more fitting for him given what I've now seen of his character in Supernatural. So yeah, Captain America,
mhm.
it would have been nice. I would have liked to have seen that ass in those leggings, but, no. I think he's perfect for Soldier Boy as
Yeah,
opposed to Captain America.
yeah, I agree.
Wow.
And
Wow, though.
he's getting a lot of buzz right now for potentially being the DCU version of Batman when
I've
James
heard
Gunn
of that.
cast that character. So we'll see. We'll see.
I've heard about that
And
too.
obviously,
Mhm.
he has ties to Batman, playing the Red Hood and
Yeah,
voicing Batman on animated movies, so we'll
yeah.
see about that. But yeah, so Jensen Ackles was, considered for the role. And speaking of the boys, also a boys actor, Chase Crawford, who plays the Deep. He auditioned for Captain America. Can you imagine the Deep as
Not
Captain
the
America?
Jeep.
The Cap, yeah,
No,
that's awesome.
absolutely not.
Yeah. So Chase Crawford, yeah,
Oh, Chase
I mean,
Crawford.
he must have been very young at that time because
Listen,
that's, we're talking 2000, 11, 12 is when they were looking to cast this movie.
mm,
Oh, no, before that. Yeah, because Captain America came out in 2011. So we're talking about 2009, 10. Yeah.
I was let me think, I was, like, 22
Yeah.
around that time. So that's wild to me. Chase Crawford.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll give it to these Texas boys for, auditioning to be, Captain America because, we basically have, our Texas flag, just a small portion of the American flag in there, so there you go. But, that's that's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Chase Crawford.
Yeah. Desmond in the chat, she says that, he was in Gossip Girl at that time. And yeah, he
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, Jared Padalecki was in Gossip Girl at the same time, or he
Maybe
was in
because
one of those shows.
that was a WBCW show.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, all
yeah,
those
and I
actors
think
kind of
they
progressed
just
into other
all
shows. Yeah.
intertwined, yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It was kind of like a farm team for other stuff, the
Yeah,
CW became for
right.
themselves and then obviously later for other things. So,
Yeah, yeah.
it was a great starting point for several actors.
Oh
Um,
goodness. This
the
is
next
wild,
I
Justin.
know it's good stuff. That's why I wanted to have a big discussion about
Awesome.
this because
So funny.
it's fun stuff.
I'm
Now,
enjoying
the
this.
next actor is one that probably most of you have heard about this actor because it's John Krasinski. He,
Jim?
during yeah, Jim from The Office, during some off period during The Office, he auditioned to play, uh, Captain America. Now, of course, he would later enter the MCU as Reed Richards in Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness.
Unofficially.
Yeah, unofficially. No, I mean, officially, he was in the movie.
Was he though?
No, he was I mean, not for the I
Not
mean,
for
he
very
was
long.
spaghettified, spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
he was in the movie. But, John Krasinski tells a funny story in the book, and I heard this actually before the book. He talks about how, to be Captain America, you gotta get pretty, strong, you gotta get beefed up, and he talked about how,
And
he
listen,
was
he did.
so, he was talking about the time that, when he was auditioning, like, around the same time Hemsworth was. And so
Yeah.
he talked about how they were kinda in the same area, and he said he was like John Krasinski was half dressed, and a very pumped up Hemsworth walked by in full Thor costume, and John
Yep.
Krasinski at that moment realized that maybe he and his body weren't cut out for playing a Texas superhero, and
Yeah,
he,
I think he said he was actually being fitted or
yeah,
into a costume that's Captain America related.
right, and
'Cause I feel like I've heard him talk about this on Graham Norton, which I
yeah,
love Graham Norton show in general, but yeah, he talked about this. He saw Hemsworth walk by and he's like, "Nope," and just
yep,
like, walked
yep.
away.
I can't look like that guy, so, I gotta
Yeah.
get out, so,
But
understandable.
how wild would it have been if Emily Blunt, who was slated to be Black
Black
Widow,
Widow, yeah,
and then you have Captain America, played by her husband, John Krasinski,
yeah,
which I don't know if they were married during that time of all this. I'm pretty sure they were. But and then given the movie of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, where Black Widow and Cap share
yeah,
like moments, like that would just been so adorable
yeah.
because they're real life husband and wife. I don't know. That would have been really sweet.
Yeah, no, it's really it's an entertaining thing to think about.
It
So,
is. It is. But you know what? I'm definitely not mad about the casting that was ultimately given to us because I think they just played off each other very well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So another actor who auditioned for Captain America was Wyatt Russell. It was actually his first ever professional audition. Now,
Are you serious?
Wyatt Russell, kind of like Jensen Ackles, but even more so, would
Yeah.
later play a version of Captain America, known as John Walker, aka U.S. Agent in The
Mhm.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So, and also he
Okay.
was also very young. I mean, he was probably like
Yeah.
maybe 20 years old or something.
5.
Yeah.
He was like 5.
Very young. But so Wyatt Russell auditioned to play Captain America. Then he actually did play Captain America years later, for an episode or 2. So,
And he actually is Kurt Russell's son.
oh yeah. Yes, he is. Yeah.
And Kurt Russell has a
Yeah.
role in the MCU.
Yeah, and we will get to that in a little bit. Yeah, because that's
Okay.
another casting, what if.
Okay.
But yeah, Wyatt Russell currently with his dad, Kurt Russell, are starring in a show on Apple about Godzilla. It's called Monarch.
Monarch.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'm watching it. It's kind of boring, but both the Russells are great. They're great actors, so it's fun to watch just for them.
Are they actually playing father and son in the show too?
They play the same character but different timelines, like a different time.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's really well done. It's really well, like, obviously
That's smart, actually.
Wyatt Russell
smart.
plays the younger version, then Kurt plays the older version in current day. So
I have a question. I mean, I don't know how many more what ifs for Captain America there may be.
2 more. Yeah.
2 more. Okay. Scott Eastwood is,
he was
because that would be the only other person I could potentially see being Captain America.
He wasn't mentioned in the book, but the book doesn't mention every single person. So
Okay.
I've heard that maybe he was up for something like that. So I can see that.
I can see it. I feel like he's got that
he's
kind of
short though.
Yeah, but he's kind of got that all-American, look of
Right.
of just being very clean cut, that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe because of what we've seen him in Fast and Furious. I don't know. I could see him potentially being a Captain America or some sort of variant of Captain America.
Yeah, no,
just throwing it out there.
That's a good call. Good call.
Yeah.
So the next actor who auditioned to play Captain America, Sebastian Stan.
Oh, yes.
Of course, he didn't get Captain America, but he got to be in Captain America. A lot of
he got to be his best friend.
Yeah, he would be cast as Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. So much like Tom Hiddleston, they're like, hey, Sebastian Stan's awesome. He's not going to be our Captain America, but he's going to be in the MCU, and they found a spot for him very quickly. So that's pretty cool.
Love it.
The final one mentioned in the book was Chris Pratt. He auditioned.
Oh God, no.
Captain America.
No.
Brittany, you laugh, but I feel like he could have been Captain.
No.
I think obviously he is much better as Star-Lord, but I feel like it's when he got in shape, I think that he could have been a Captain.
Another Chris that could have sufficed would have been Chris Pine.
Yeah, maybe so.
Why not? Just get all the Chris's. Get all the Chris's.
Chris Pine is obviously he was in DC he played Steve Trevor in the Wonder Woman films, and of course
also in Star Trek.
He was also the voice of a Spider-Man in Into the Spider-Verse. So
just saying he could have been another potential.
I bet if you look at the timeline, he was doing Captain Kirk work at that time.
I'm sure he was.
So probably wasn't available to even audition. For that character.
It's just like the Infinity Stones. Let's just collect all the Chris's, okay?
There you go.
They're all virtually the same person.
So speaking of Chris Pratt, let's transition to the Guardians of the Galaxy because this stuff is pretty wild. So the first character, of course, is Star-Lord, who Chris Pratt became the character. However, when James Gunn first saw Chris Pratt, he said, quote, Chris Pratt was all wrong for the part. However, the woman I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Sarah Haley Finn, she convinced Gunn to let Pratt. I'm sorry.
Oh, James Gunn. Yeah.
Yeah. She convinced James Gunn to let Pratt audition in person. And within seconds, reportedly, Gunn decided that Pratt had the part. So whatever Chris Pratt did in person, it won over James Gunn real fast. And so he became Star-Lord. So
you know what I bet he did? He probably did the scene where they're kind of like the lineup and he's like has his hand and he's kind of like he's cranking the what do you call it? Like the
middle finger. Yeah.
Middle finger, and it's just slowly going up. And that's probably what he did to James Gunn. He's like, that's the
maybe
guy.
So.
That's the guy I want.
I think he did do the headphone scene where he's dancing.
Oh, geez.
And, at the begining of Guardians 1. So so
hey, what's
which we also saw in Avengers Endgame. So
it's like so James Gunn was probably like, so he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Casting director. Yeah. There we
Chosen. Go. Yeah.
Chosen.
Okay. So I'm now this to me, this is the wildest casting what if.
Okay.
And unfortunately, George couldn't be a part of the episode, but I did tell George this today because I didn't want to spoil this to anybody, any of the watchers before, because I want to
Mm,
get your general, your authentic
genuine
reaction,
reaction.
genuine
Yeah.
reaction. Yeah, thank you for the assist. So the next casting was Drax. So of course Dave Bautista got the character. Dave Bautista, former WWE wrestler, perfect casting, like
Don't
the
say The Rock.
physicality. No, not The
Don't say The
Rock.
Rock. Okay.
No, but like, and I want everyone to listen to this one. This one blew me away whenever I read this in the book. So the person who auditioned for Drax first was Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman, who of course would be cast as Black Panther. He was gonna be, or he wanted to be Drax. And while he
You're
didn't get
shitting me.
no, I was blown. I was like, this is unbelievable. Because like
What?
just like body type wise of the character, even from the comics, you know, like Drax is almost like a Hulk, like I mean a Hulk light, but a massive figure. So Chadwick Boseman auditioned. They loved Chadwick Boseman, but they're like, no, you're not right for this part. But we think you might be good for Black Panther. And so that's how he became Black Panther. He nailed the audition, but not for Drax. So I thought that
Wow.
was, to me, that's the craziest one of all the ones we've talked about. All the ones I'm going to talk about, that's the craziest one.
That
Yeah,
is incredible.
yeah. I can't
Whoa.
even see it. Like as Chadwick Boseman
No.
as, because I mean, he was never like,
No.
he was never that body type. It just doesn't even
No, he
compute.
wasn't, but given the comedic timing
Yeah,
that Drax exhibits, like,
yeah,
not saying that Chadwick couldn't do it, 'cause I think the man had the potential to do anything, really.
yeah.
I I agree with Desmond A. I can't see it. I just can't.
But it
Like,
is a what if, like, oh, it is like maybe one of the craziest what if scenarios of the MCU, because
oh,
what
without
if
a
he were
doubt.
cast as Drax, he would never be Black Panther. Like it's
No, and then
yeah,
when you're talking about actual What If, I'm talking about the animated show called
right.
What If.
Yeah, good transition.
They
Yeah.
T'Challa was made to be Star-Lord.
I know. Also a Guardians thing, which
Crazy!
I thought about that too. I'm like, I didn't know that
You think they did
Chadwick,
that on purpose?
maybe so. Maybe it's some kind of like
Because
nod
he's
to
voicing himself, like,
right. He voiced
voicing
himself.
T'Challa.
And it is
That
a
is
weird, like, of
funny.
all the characters for T'Challa to be, for him to be one of the Guardians, like, that just seems kind of off the wall, you know? Like, I mean, I could see,
Come
like,
on.
T'Challa being Iron Man or Captain America, obviously, because he kinda has a close thing with Captain America even in the comics and, of course, in the movie, but, like, for him to
Yeah, if
switch
he had
places
been
with
like
Star-Lord, yeah.
yeah, if he had been like Falcon or something,
Yeah,
Sam
right.
Wilson
That makes sense, yeah.
or hell, even like Bucky. I
Yeah,
could see that. Now,
right, right.
given the era that all this takes place, it probably wouldn't have happened, but, like, I I can see that. I can't see him as that kind of angry, kinda dumb sort of
Yeah,
physical being, you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, I just it doesn't seem to that is wild to
I
me.
know. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
So
Chadwick, my
I
man.
know. So moving on in the Guardians, Gamora was, of course, Zoe Saldana, who, much like Chris Evans, was not that interested in playing Gamora because she had just played
Shocking.
an alien in body paint in Avatar,
Avatar.
and she was also in Star Trek, just like we mentioned
Chris
Chris Pine
Pine.
earlier. So she,
Mhm. Also,
but
Benedict Cumberbatch would be in Star Trek as well. He
yes,
played
he was.
Khan.
Yeah, there's, and I mean, Chris Hemsworth was in Star Trek also. He played Captain Kirk's dad in the first one. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he plays Chris Pine's dad in the like, it's like in the past. He plays
That's
Chris Pine.
crazy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
that's the
that.
first time I ever saw Chris Hemsworth. Like, that was
Oh,
the
okay,
first
okay.
movie I ever saw him in,
Huh.
so, I mean, he's
Weird.
only, I mean, spoiler, he's not in the movie for very long because
Shocking.
Captain Kirk's dad doesn't survive too long, but, yeah, you should go check that out.
Okay,
It's the first
okay.
Star Trek movie by J.J. Abrams is pretty good.
I
Good
like the
movie.
second one. I like Into Darkness.
Yeah,
That one was pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
So, moving on, so, again, Gamora,
Come on.
Zoe Saldana got the part.
Yeah.
However, another Black Panther actor auditioned for the role. Lupita Nyong'o auditioned to be
Really?
Gamora. Again, they really liked her, but they didn't think she was right for Gamora, so she was later cast as in
Nakia.
Nakia, sorry, in Black Panther. So, I think that's kinda interesting how 2 of the main Black Panther stars auditioned for Guardians, and then
Yeah.
of course became like iconic characters in the Black Panther franchise. So
But, I think Lupita, given her versatility,
mhm,
given her range, I think she would have actually done very well as Gamora.
yeah,
I think that also would have been a very fitting character for her.
yeah,
Um, Kinda harboring this sort of anger that she has towards her, quote, "father," to me is very reminiscent of her character from 12 Years a Slave, which obviously is a very heavy topic of to discuss and what have you, but her performance in that movie was amazing. I think that's what led her to her Oscar win. So I think channeling that sort of energy into being Gamora, I think she would have done very well. Yeah, it's like Desmond A here. I think Lupita would have been a good Gamora. I agree. I think Zoe did fine. I think she did great as well.
yeah,
I would actually be very interested to see Lupita as Gamora
yeah.
and have to play opposite of you know oh god, what's her name? Who plays Nebula, to see just what kind of chemistry they would have had as on-screen sisters.
Mhm.
So, yeah, interesting, interesting.
Yeah. So
I like that
Lupita,
choice. I
yeah.
like that choice though.
So Lupita Nyong'o auditioned, but she wasn't the only person to audition. Also auditioning was Amanda Seyfried. Do you know that
I
actress?
I do I do know Amanda Seyfried, yes,
Seyfried,
she
sorry. Yeah,
no, you're fine. So,
yeah,
very first time I saw her was in Mean Girls. She
yeah,
played Karen, she was the dumb one.
yeah,
And I think she's more famously known for playing Cosette in Les Miserables with, Hugh Jackman,
mhm,
Eddie Redmayne,
yeah,
uh, Russell Crowe. Um, Phenomenal actress, she wonderful singing voice. Don't see her
yeah.
as Gamora at all.
So she had a funny quote, and she actually got pretty far in the process, and it actually sounds like
Really?
she didn't want the role because it says she's passed on the role, saying, "I didn't want to be a part of the first Marvel movie that bombed. Who wants to see a movie about a talking tree and a raccoon?" Or she would
A lot of people
later
apparently.
regret that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
damn.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
No idea about that. That's
yeah,
that's funny to me. Uh, Desmond A,
yeah.
she hit it. I think I have ESPN or something.
Right, from, Mean Girls, yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
great.
great.
Um,
Oh,
so we mentioned Kurt Russell earlier,
yep,
and in Guardians Volume 2, Kurt Russell was cast as Ego, the living planet, who is the father of Star-Lord.
yep.
However, the studio officially wanted Matthew McConaughey to play the character, and I remember I read this, and right away I go, "No, because Matthew McConaughey isn't that much older than Chris Pratt." I looked it up. He's only 10 years older than Pratt. And to me, if you look at them, like, they look like they're, like, within 5 years of the same age. You know what I'm saying? Like, Matthew McConaughey keeps himself in pretty good shape. So does Chris, Pratt. To me, they look like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it looks like they maybe went to high school together, or they it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, or it was like an older brother, little brother situation, not a father-son. So, um, Matthew McConaughey passed in the role. He kinda said, "Hey, I like the first Guardians movie. I don't think I'm a fit for, this universe." So,
You mean
all right,
he
all
did
right, all right. Yeah,
you I was gonna
yeah.
say, you mean he didn't say, "Alright, alright, alright."
He did
Or
not.
or like in The Wolf of Wall Street, he's,
Yeah.
doing
Yeah,
that.
instead, he said, "I'm all right, I'm all right, I'm all right. I don't need the job." Yeah.
Now, if you had said they thought about Owen Wilson, he's all like, "Wow," you know?
Are you just gonna do all your impressions right now? You
We're not done with the pod, so
we're
it's
not
very
done with the pod.
likely it's
Yeah.
very
We
likely
might get some more.
we might get
Yeah,
some more impressions here.
yeah,
Desmond A in the chat says, "Yes, Justin, I agree. They look like they could be brothers." I wouldn't see the family resemblance, of course,
no.
but,
No, but,
no.
like, just like they look like they would, like, be
Closer
uh
in sibling age
yeah,
than father-son.
exactly.
No, I get
Right,
that, I
right.
get that. Yeah, no.
So,
No, you needed
yeah.
clearly you needed someone to be older to possess, like, the years experience, the wisdom,
Yeah.
your freaking planet, for God's sakes, like
Well, Kurt Russell, not is he much older than McConaughey, but, like, he is, like, a similar actor to Chris Pratt. They kinda have, like, similar, like
oh,
they
yeah,
have a
yeah, yeah,
similar vibe, so it
I
makes
can see
total
that.
sense that
Yeah.
Kurt Russell would be Chris Pratt's father in the MCU. So once
They both have
again,
they both have egos. I get it.
yes, and one of them is named Ego. So
Yeah.
anyway, the MCU once again very good at casting. They got the right casting.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the next character is not a Guardian. It is Sharon Carter.
Okay.
So we of course know that Haley Atwell, auditioned, right?
But she was cast as Peggy.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I have the wrong actress. No, I'm sorry, not Sharon. Sharon Carter was played by. I'm sorry, I don't have the right actress. Anyway, it was Emily. What's her
Emily
name?
Van
Emily
Camp.
Van Camp. So Emily
Mhm.
Van Camp was Sharon Carter. However,
Yes.
Karen Gillan auditioned to be Sharon Carter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then she was later cast as Nebula in the Guardians.
Okay.
So that kind of goes with the Guardians theme. I messed that up there, but yeah, Emily Van Camp was Sharon Carter. That's
I
right.
think I mean I could see that. I could even see her potentially being Peggy Carter.
Yeah,
But I think she's kind of got that look that would fit that 1940s sort of era.
yeah,
But to be Sharon Carter as the niece of Peggy Carter, that would have been cool. That would have been cool. But she excels as Nebula.
yeah,
I think that was really cool.
yeah. They made the right call there.
Hmm.
Do you remember the character Maya Hansen from Iron Man 3?
Maya Hansen. Yeah. The biologist.
Yeah, the biologist. So
Mhm.
originally, Jessica Chastain was the pick to play that part. She, however,
Huh.
declined, and Rebecca Hall was cast as the character. So
Okay. Not a huge role, but okay.
no,
Interesting.
yeah. Actually, it's supposed to be a much bigger role, but
Because
there's a
of
lot of
Jessica.
information in the book about
Mm.
that. So definitely check that out.
I guess given who Jessica Chastain is, that would warrant having a bigger role than what
Well, even
was
with
done.
Rebecca Hall, it's supposed to be a bigger character, but
Hmm.
there are
Interesting.
reasons why she was not why she was kind of de-emphasized, and it has
Oh.
really nothing to do with Rebecca Hall, but it has to do with kind of how Marvel, the company, not
Mm.
studios, was founded on their principles. And so anyway, I don't
Uh-oh.
want to spoil stuff like that. So yeah, just go
Eh,
read that, check that out.
Yikes.
But moving on to Ant-Man slash Scott Lang. Of course, Paul Rudd was the pick.
Mhm.
However, by the way, Ant-Man was supposed to be one of the three first movies of the MCU. Of course, Iron Man, Hulk, and Ant-Man was supposed to be the third movie. It didn't happen. It was going to be directed by Edgar Wright. However, he later would drop out due to creative differences with Marvel Studios. However, whenever he was in charge of the movie, he wanted to cast Simon Pegg as Scott Lang.
Are you serious?
Yeah, who Simon Pegg is a favorite of Edgar Wright. He's been in Edgar Wright movies, and so that's who he wanted to cast.
Simon Pegg, the Scottish
Yep,
actor,
yep,
the one who's in Star Trek.
yep.
Jeez.
Yes, man. The one who in The Boys, that's who Huey Campbell is based
Huey
on.
Campbell's father. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and Huey's father in the show, and the character Huey in the comic was based off Simon Pegg. So
That's right. It was.
he wanted
Oh
to cast
my
Simon Pegg.
god.
Also
Oh,
considered for the role, Army Hammer.
oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, he would.
Oh.
They dodged a
Yikes.
bullet with that guy.
Dodged the bullet with that one. My
Yeah.
goodness.
However, the strongest contender to Paul Rudd was Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah, who would of course
I can kind of see
play.
that.
He was in The Dark Knight Rises as
Mhm.
he played
Robin
Robin. Yeah. So
or Dick Clark. Was it
not
name?
Dick Clark.
Dick
No,
Dick Clark. What did I say?
no, it wasn't like rocking around the Christmas tree with Dick Clark. No,
I know.
honestly, I can't think of the name of the character, but yeah, it was supposed to be Robin.
Grayson, Dick Grayson.
No, Dick Grayson is actually Robin.
I know, but that wasn't that his character name
No,
in
it's a different character. Yeah.
Oh, fine.
If you can,
I'll do it. I'll do it. Continue.
I
God.
can't believe I don't remember the name of the character, but
If I'm
yeah.
right, you're
No,
gonna
it's
owe
not
me
Dick Grayson.
money.
It's 100% not Dick Grayson. I will, yeah.
Oh, John Blake.
Yeah, there
What
you go, John
what a
Blake.
basic name.
Yeah, well, that's why it was
So basic.
set that way. That way, whenever he becomes Robin, because Robin is his actual real given name that they
Right.
reveal,
Right.
that's like the big twist that, he's gonna now take up the mantle as Batman because Christian Bale's Batman has retired with Selena Kyle, played by Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of Anne Hathaway, we may talk about her very soon. So moving on.
Pepper
So
Potts.
no, she was
Yeah.
no. So moving on to the villain for
Mm,
uh, Ant-Man, the first movie, it was Yellow Jacket slash Darren Cross.
yep.
Corey Stoll got the role. However, originally cast was Patrick Wilson. He had to pass due to scheduling conflicts. Now, if you're
He
a
was an
DC,
Aquaman, though.
yeah, he
He
would
was
later be
also
an
in
Aquaman. Yeah,
he was in Phantom of the Opera. He was kind of an
he was in a lot
unknown
of
at that
stuff.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson. So he had other things going on. So and speaking of Aquaman, he's in Aquaman too. He plays Aquaman's brother Orm,
Mhm.
Ocean Master. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that would have
Hmm.
been interesting if he were in the MCU instead of the DCEU.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So now going back in time, Sam Raimi, of course, directed the original Spider-Man trilogy for Sony.
Yep.
And he was set to make a Spider-Man 4, which of course did not happen, which later became the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. However, whenever he was working on Spider-Man 4, here's some of the castings that we were told in the book. So
Okay.
Felicia Hardy slash Black Cat was going to be portrayed by Anne Hathaway, which, as Anne Hathaway says in the book, if she would have played Black Cat, I doubt she would have gotten to play Catwoman, a few years later. So
Yeah.
probably a good move for her that she didn't become Black Cat. Um,
She became a cat in some sort of fashion, but
yes,
like,
exactly. Right. Also dressed in black. So
right.
she got to do that. The Vulture, which of course in the MCU played by Michael Keaton, in the Sam Raimi universe was going to be played by John Malkovich. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
John Malkovich.
Yeah, he was gonna be, the Vulture. And then get this, the real villain of the film was gonna be a character called the Vultress, which is the Vulture's daughter, played by Angelina Jolie.
Oh Lord Jesus.
Yeah, so
I'm kind of glad
that
this movie didn't
that
happen.
movie did not happen, I think, yeah,
Thank
I think
God.
they yeah,
John Malkovich, Angelina Jolie,
yeah.
and who's the third person you said?
It was, Anne Hathaway
Anne Hathaway.
as, Black Cat, so I know you're not a big Spider-Man fan, but Black Cat is a big
No,
character in the Spider-Man.
this
Uh,
this this
she
just sounds silly.
She much like how Catwoman is a frenemy of Batman, where, like, she's a love interest of Batman, but she's also
Mm,
a villain.
mm,
Black Cat kinda wears the same hat for, Spider-Man. So,
got it.
yeah. So
This just sounds like a silly movie.
yeah. So, moving on to the Spider-Man in the MCU, of course, casting that role was very crucial because after Tobey Maguire in the Raimi movies, of course, Andrew Garfield played the character, and,
Right.
Garfield did not get to continue. The Spider-Man chapter is awesome also in this book, so definitely check that out. But
Okay.
as we know, Tom Holland was cast as the famous web slinger. His main competition, and there were a lot of actors. They didn't in the book, they only mentioned one other actor, but I did my own research and there's a ton of other actors. It would take
Of
forever to go
course.
through all of them. But the main actor who was Tom Holland's competition is an actor I'm not familiar with, but his name is Asa Butterfield. He was in a movie called Ender's Game.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
Asa.
Yeah, so Asa was the number 2 for for Peter Parker. He lost out
Man,
to Tom Holland, and what happened is they
he's got that baby face. He
yeah,
could have been young forever.
yeah. So both Asa Butterfield and Tom Holland did screen tests with Robert Downey Jr.,
Okay.
and RDJ endorsed Tom Holland. In fact, they said after auditioning with Holland, he walked over to Feige and gave a big thumbs up. And so
Okay.
RDJ kind of cast Tom Holland.
He kind of started Tom Holland's
Yeah.
career.
So
Wow.
Tom Holland
Interesting.
is very deferential to RDJ for a number of reasons, but because of
Sure.
that, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, I thought that was again the Spider-Man chapter is bonkers. You got to check that out. Very cool. Um,
Asa is a great, great, great actor. The first time I saw him, he was a young boy, and it was a movie called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And his this is Nazi time. His father is a Nazi officer, and they live next to a concentration camp. And he befriends a little boy in striped pajamas. And yeah, that movie. Oh man, it still makes me cry every time I watch it. For him to exhibit that kind of performance at such a young age, and then when I saw him again in Ender's Game, he had that level of intensity. So I think he could have. I can see how he could have been a contender for Spider Man. And the fact that he has that baby face, like, even now,
Oh yeah, yeah,
he's, like, 20, I don't know, 25 or so. I think he's about Tom Holland's age,
yeah. I think they're very close
and
to age.
they're both English, which I think is hilarious. They both can do a great American accent. Um, that is really interesting that it was down to those 2, and for RDJ to basically give his blessing to Tom Holland is incredible 'cause, for someone who's not a huge Spider-Man fan, I absolutely love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think
Yeah,
he's, like, the perfect fit for a very young Spider-Man. You look back at, the Sam Raimi with Tobey Maguire, and it's like, "Oh my god," he looks so old to
yeah,
play a teenager.
yeah,
And then you look at Tom Holland, it's like, "Oh, this makes more sense,"
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
bravo.
I like
Bravo.
all 3 actors that we've seen on screen play Spider-Man. I've liked them in
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
their own
Sure.
ways, but, like,
Sure,
yeah,
sure,
like,
sure.
Tobey Maguire seemed too old. Andrew Garfield looked too cool to be, like, the nerdy
He
character,
did.
but Tom
Yeah.
Holland kind of, like, just
He
kinda
fits
nails it.
both worlds.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
he's,
like
like
he's nerdy, but he's cute?
he's the best Peter Parker, and he's also the best Spider-Man, which I think is,
Mhm.
like, so that made him the perfect
Well,
casting
and the
for the
fact that he
character.
also does, like, a lot of his own sort of stunt work, and
Yeah,
he
he's
he
very
kind of
acrobatic and yeah.
yeah, he kinda manifested getting that role?
Yeah,
So, that's pretty
yeah.
cool.
Again,
Bravo.
there's a lot of great Spider-Man stuff in the book. They break down Sony's contract with Marvel over Spider-Man and how he came to the MCU. That's a great part of the book. And the
Mhm.
fact that, Spider-Man: Homecoming, when he did join the MCU, the title was a sly nod to the fact that the character was returning to Marvel. So I thought that was
Mhm.
a cool,
Yeah.
entrance in the book. So that wraps up all the casting stuff. I wanted to mention a couple other little interesting nuggets. Again, I don't want to spoil the whole book, but a couple interesting things. For example, Joss Whedon directed the first Avengers movie, directed actually the first 2. And he wanted to call the first Avengers, which is Marvel's Avengers, he wanted to call it Avengers: Some Assembly Required, which
Makes
is
it sound like it's a Lego set.
it's funny, but, like, I don't think, like,
It's too wordy.
no, also it's like it's too silly to,
Yeah, it is.
you're trying to be too cute, like, I think people would have been like, "What the hell?"
I mean, if it was simply Avengers Assembled,
Right. There
that's
exactly,
more
right,
appropriate, but
right,
not
but
some assembly required. Like,
yeah, yeah.
no,
I mean, it's a cute, funny title, but yeah.
no. Maybe if it was like
And
a cartoon or something, but no,
right,
not for the first like team up movie. No,
yeah. And then,
no.
the the Thanos post-credit scene in the Avengers movie, Whedon that he threw that in as, like, a fan service to, like, comic book fans,
Mm,
they were not planning to do Thanos anytime soon.
the one with the gauntlet.
Yeah, and, like,
Okay.
they he put Thanos in there, and all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh, this is good. This is our direction. This is the way we're gonna go." So, that's one thing about the book is you realize they didn't have,
Here's
like,
the
one
Infinity Saga.
right, they didn't have, like, this, like, grand overreaching plan. They just, they saw what worked, and they made moves on the fly, and then they made their plans, and so it's kind of I think we all thought it was, like, all mapped out from the beginning, and some stuff
No.
is mapped out, but not
Yeah, yeah,
everything
yeah.
was, and like I said, we're at a point with this new Avengers movie with the King stuff, who knows what's gonna happen now, so,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting we talked about this on this day.
Yeah, for sure. And I know this is something we didn't cover at throughout this podcast, but I know you shared with me while reading this book about Kevin Feige, how he had had an internship during the Sony time with
Yeah,
X-Men, and how he had questions, or he was like, no, it should be more like the comics, and he was you know making all these efforts to make sure that they were making this movie as authentic to the comics as much as
mhm,
possible. And he kind of got in trouble for stuff like that because, one, you're an intern.
right,
Two, you were given a directive to not bring comic books and to talk to the actors about any of this, and he did. And so to me, that really shows like his drive and his dedication to wanting to make sure that the quality of the movie or movies that he's a part of really matters, right?
yeah,
They have to make adjustments because obviously you can't, you know, be true to every single page in a comic or character, that kind of thing. You have to kind of pivot to make it work. But for the most part, I really feel that Kevin Feige and company have made things work. Like, yes, some things may not have been as successful as other movies or shows, but like for the most part, it's it's been quite the reign, and I think the fact that
Yeah.
the book is entitled as such is very well placed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kevin Feige obviously is a huge character throughout the book, and,
Yeah,
Desmond A says she's added it to her, Amazon cart, so
you made
that's
her
cool.
into a
Yeah.
believer.
No, it's really good. I don't think you'll regret that. That's a good call. But Kevin Feige, who is, like, now I mean, he runs the most successful studio in the history of movies.
Yeah.
When he was a college student, he applied for the USC Film School. He was rejected 5 times. It took
Damn.
6 attempts. Like, now, I mean, they should name a wing at the whole school after like, a whole building after him, like,
Mhm.
he ended up going to USC. He was a major film fan. He was not a comic fan.
Yeah.
He became a comic fan later on in life whenever he was working on these X-Men movies, and he's like, "Hey, we need to,
Mhm.
like, look
Make
at, like"
sure it's
yeah,
legit.
this you know, these characters have a deep history, and, like, this stuff has been fleshed out before. So, yeah, it's the book's not all about him, but he's obviously a big player, as of course you think he would be. So, and my final thing about the book, I just wanna mention, this is just like a little funny quote in the book. So, there's talk about how in the comic books, um, the MCU is Earth 199999, right? However, the MCU refers to itself as Earth 616 because the Marvel universe in the comics is 616. So Iman Vellani, who is Miss Marvel and a huge fan, she like Kevin Feige thinks that the MCU should be 616. However, it shouldn't be. And
Okay.
she's always telling him like she every time she meets him, they talk about this. And she
Okay.
says that one time she was well, one of the red carpets, and she saw Kevin Feige from across the way, and he looked at her, and he silently just whispered 616, and she says, "I think about that every night before I go to bed." It's just really funny. It's so,
That's so
like
funny.
she's such a great, like, character and a great, like, ambassador for the MCU,
She's
but,
such a good addition to the
yeah,
whole franchise, yeah.
she's like, yeah, she's like, "It haunts my nightmares, and I think about it every night before I go to bed." So, anyway, funny stuff, but, yeah,
Sitting
once
in
again,
therapy, 616,
yeah.
616.
Once again, this is a great book. I would recommend anybody to pick it up. So, yeah. So, Brittany, do you have any other thoughts about what we talked about there?
Th this has been fun. I mean, I mean, you share with me some of my favorite actors of all time to have either been considered or have actually auditioned, throwing in other people that I'm like, "No, absolutely the F not."
Yeah.
This is really interesting. Like Desmond A, I might actually just go and get this book and read it for myself or get like the audio version. I wonder if
Yeah.
it's available on my my Spotify. This is not sponsored or anything like that. This is just a quick plug-in for y'all. If you have Spotify Premium, you
Mm.
guys have access to a lot of audiobooks included in your premium account, y'all. So take advantage of that because unlike other services, you have to pay a monthly, you know,
Yeah.
thing that's separate from whatever else you're already paying for. This is all inclusive. So you can get your music, you can get your podcasts, hours,
Yep.
and audiobooks, just for your premium costs. That to me is amazing. And you can just keep adding your playlist. So if this book is available on the Spotify audiobooks playlist, I am absolutely going to give it a listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff. Before we get out of here, there's some more Marvel news before we leave. Um, Last week, Marvel announced their kind of slate for 2024. And obviously, we know the only movie coming out next year is the Deadpool 3.
Yep.
However, they announced the shows that are going to be released next year. So next year, we're going to get Echo, of course, which is dropping January 9th. It was going to be January 10th. They moved it up a day. All 5 episodes are going to drop on January 9th. So
Mhm.
that will be what's it called? I'm sorry. A binge release of that.
Yeah.
Then we're also going to get Agatha. The Agatha show is now called Agatha Darkhold Diaries. It was formerly called Agatha Coven of Chaos.
How many
That
times has that show changed
I
names?
know it's changed.
It's
It's
been
just
like 3 or 4.
yeah. So that's the new name is Agatha Darkhold Diaries. We're getting that next year.
Okay.
Also, we're getting some animated stuff, including X-Men '97, and we're getting a Black Panther series called Eyes of Wakanda. It's an animated series,
Mm.
and the Spider-Man freshman year is now, they changed the title. It's now called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So all that stuff is coming in 2024. So
Okay.
we will
Interesting.
be likely reviewing those
All of it.
shows and
All
movies
of it.
whenever they come out. So, and of
All
course,
of it.
the next thing for the MCU, or for Marvel, is What If, which will drop on December 22nd. There'll be one episode a day for 9 days. We will do a review sometime in early January of all 9 episodes in one podcast. So look for that in the new year. So Brittany, I think that's all we got. As we get out of here, we just want to thank the people in the chat. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so Desmond A and Yesenia, thank you so much, both of y'all, for being here and sharing your thoughts on the things that Justin shared with all of us. Love your input. We love interacting with you guys. The engagement's just always so much more fun when we've got people in the chat. So we definitely encourage everyone who's watching live and or watching the replay to join us for our live streams, because they're just a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun when we've got y'all hanging out with us and sharing some info with us as well. So we appreciate you both being here. Yesenia is a longtime Watchers fan, as well as Desmond A. Desmond A has also been on the pod with us a couple of times, currently competing with us for our character draft. So if you missed it at the top of the show, check our description box down below for the link to the draft podcast, as well as the link to cast your vote as to which one of us here in the Watchers in the Basement has the best character draft picks. So we'll announce the winner come January 2024. But also, Justin, before we head out of here, I want to tell everyone to not only subscribe to our YouTube channel, also hit that like button. Helps out our channel a lot. And we're on the road to 300 subscribers by the end of 2023, y'all. At time of recording, we're at 291. 9 more. Did I do that right? 9 more. We need 9 more.
Help us out. Yeah.
Subs. So help us out. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your parents, tell your dog, just help us get to 300 subscribers before the end of 2023. That would be our Christmas wish and our New Year's resolution, even though we didn't make one. But anyway, also also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Watchers Basement, where you can also use the hashtag Watchers Basement to not only help grow our audience, but to tag us in things you want us to talk about, memes, articles. We talked about breaking news about Jonathan Majors. If you guys see anything else that may be of some interest to us, be sure to use that hashtag Watchers Basement. Once again, follow us all on social media. And if you're not into the video podcasts here on YouTube, we've got you covered with audio podcasts available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to follow us there and give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it. So for Brittany, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. And if we don't see you before the holidays, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that good stuff, and Happy New Year. And yeah, so again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.